I love the way making art makes me feel. It's not about the end result or making a good piece of art that's important. All of that is a bonus for me. Making art is a healing process. It makes me feel calm, still, quiet, and it soothes my soul. It helps me quiet my always chatty mind. It helps me to get out of my head and get lost in the process. The joy this brings from being connected to the present moment and my craft creates a safe, still place in my heart that the chaos of the world cannot touch. During this process, art heals my soul, one fragment at a time. After years of making art, it has dawned on me recently just how important my art practice is for my mental health. I just love to get lost in the process. And there's something magical that happens when I focus on the doing and it transforms my mind, stopping me from overthinking, which is something I suffer from a lot, and it transports me into this magical world of creation and creating and following the unknown. We've recently had a death in the family. It was unexpected and shocking and hard, and this has reaffirmed for me just how important and personal my art practice is. There's something so special about the repetition of creating over and over again. It feels so comforting, working in familiar ways, with familiar tools, and just filling the pages over and over again. Sometimes I get lost in this almost mindless yet mindful meditative process. This idea of just creating and letting things flow onto the page, to explore and experiment, and at times it's really exciting to try new things. It feels like an adventure of just seeing what happens. It's a safe space where you can close the pages of a sketchbook and the outcome doesn't really matter. This is such a major lesson in learning to trust your intuition. Art has taught me so much about myself. Every time I create a piece of art, I come up against emotional blockages or questions, and quite often these translate and become metaphors for my life, looking at the bigger picture, and it really helps me to work through things. Trusting to lean on my intuition and my gut feeling has been something I've worked on for years. And it's always interesting to me that when you approach a page or your sketchbook in a way where you don't really have a plan, you create something on the page, and then it's almost like that inspires you to do the next step. And it's that, listening to that little voice of what the painting is calling for next, which has really helped me develop this trust in my intuition and trust in myself. It's trusting those little decisions, which aren't very much at the time, but in the grand scheme of life, they help so much with trusting how you make decisions on a bigger picture and in a bigger plane. I really, really love the art process. It's really helped me to heal on so many levels. From a young age, I used to scribble and draw lots of houses on a page. It was a way of working through emotion and getting it out of my body. I also find it's very meditative to sit in the evenings and watch a film, watch the TV, maybe watch Netflix, and just create. It gives my hands something to do. As someone that's always on the go and is quite a fidget, it really helps to channel that energy, and it really shifts my mind into being productive instead of procrastinating and overthinking. Art has been such a fun exploration, and quite often I find I get stuck with not really knowing where to start. It can be quite stifling at times to approach a blank page, but I found the best thing to do with anything in art is just to start, and it's taking one step at a time. As you do that, the next step is revealed. Over the past week, I have been exploring several different types of making art, from working with watercolours on watercolour blocks to using gouache, which is something I'm still quite new at. This is something that's still quite unfamiliar to me, but it's been so fun to just layer these things down first and work in over the top. I've also been using my cutouts that I created a couple of weeks ago, and this has been really fun to work with composition. Again, it's working with the unknown and trying new things. This has really helped me to kind of plan out sketches or drawings before I even really know what I want to create. It's inspired a lot of new work and new ideas, and I've combined this with old work like my tiger sticker that I have, and it's really helped me to get excited, I think, about where my artwork is going. I definitely gained this sense of confidence in what I'm doing and the direction I want to take my work in, and all of that comes from just this daily art practice of repetition, of showing up at the page and just doing it over and over, and trusting that gut feeling, trusting the intuition, and trusting the inspiration that comes at the time. One of the best things that I love to do is my simple line drawings. I get so much joy from a black fine line pen and just working on a white page. It's so simple, and yet you can create so much with that. And this has been one of the most fun things to come out of working in my sketchbooks. This is also a brilliant process to get lost in. It's so meditative. I find it so calming, and I can just doodle away, adding in more details. I can actually colour things in if I want to. I can leave it black and white if I want to. And this has really, really inspired a lot of my most recent work. I'm also a huge fan of colour, and I really love abstract colour work, especially in other artists. It's interesting to me that the work I admire in other artists is not the work that comes out of me. I seem to create my own thing, and I guess that's okay. It took me a while to appreciate that and accept that as well. But also, it's so nice to see other people's work and appreciate their talent and quality for what they create and bring to the world. But working in colour is definitely something I'm delving back into. I found that it feels so easy to just draw in black and white. And over the past few months, going through this grieving process, this is what I've lent into, just keeping my practice really, really simple, just drawing in black and white and just letting the images flow out of me. Not overthinking it, not worrying about what direction I'm taking it in, just really taking my foot off the gas and just allowing myself to make art every day, even if it's repeating motifs, even if I'm repeating the same things. I'm just creating what feels easy, and that has been so good for my soul. I've really missed working in colour though, and something I have always loved to do is my mandala orbs, where I combine these two things. I have this abstract colourway going on in the middle, which is the orb, and then I doodle lots of detailed motifs, maybe vines and flowers, all around the outside. This has been a really interesting kind of marriage of how I bring these two of my favourite processes together. But this week I've also been working with coloured pencil, which I haven't done in decades, and it's been really, really nice to incorporate this and a more kind of refined, detailed way of working in colour into my work. So colouring in my really detailed pen drawings with my colouring pencils and layering up the colour so that it almost looks painted has been so fun. I've also used gouache to water it down so that almost becomes like a watercolour paint, and I find this a really lovely base to work on as well. It's very fluid. Gouache is quite interesting that you can get quite nice blocky solid opaque colour, but I really love the kind of unpredictable nature of adding water so that it flows and the colours blend together similar to watercolour. I've then been working in over the top with coloured pencil as well, and this has been really beautiful to then add in my fine line details over the top, and there's been something really magical about this process to me. And again, I can tell when I'm on the right track because I get excited about my work, or I get excited about a process that I've discovered or a certain medium that I've discovered. So moving forwards then, I'm really excited to keep working in both of these mediums, really enjoying this kind of painterly, really beautiful colours, layering colours, and this idea of mixed media, of playing around with pencil, gouache, neo colours, adding in different things, creating texture, creating interest, mark making, and just seeing what develops on the page. But I also really love this idea of kind of finite and finished pieces, which I find the black pen just creates this really fine, detailed, finished look to each of the motifs. So drawing back in over the top, and again, it's almost this perfectionism, but finished feeling that it creates in the work. And this has been really fun to work in these kind of layers of different medium. When I try and take a healing approach to my art, I try to be loose about it. I try to play, I try to experiment. I try to do what comes easily, but also create this looseness around the work. It's taking the pressure off so that I'm not needing to make a specific thing for a specific reason. I'm just making the art that makes me feel good. And it's all about the feeling that I get when I create it. For this, it doesn't really matter what the art is. It could literally be colour swatching on a page. It could be splattering colours one on top of the other. Whatever it is that makes me feel good on the inside, that's the important part of this process for me. And it's listening to that and learning to listen to my body. I find sometimes if I get too tight and the perfectionism comes back in, I can become quite stressed about the art I'm making. And that's what helps ground me and realise that's not the art that's true to me. I shouldn't be getting stressed about it. It should be a flow, and it should be able to flow easily out of me. And again, this is where I differentiate between the art that I really love to see and I appreciate in other artists' work versus the art that wants to flow out of me. And it took me years to realise that these are different and that that's okay. And that the art that wants to come out of me wants to come out for a reason. I've needed to really accept that and just follow this process. And it is quite scary, this unknown adventure. I don't know where it's taking me, and I don't know what work's going to come next. But that's also where the excitement is, and that sense of hope and joy and exploration. It feels like an adventure, like you're traveling, except you're traveling through the page and through time and through expression instead of traveling in the real world. I try and use influences from my natural world around me. So going for walks, getting out in nature, things like hearing the bird song, different weathers can affect how I feel, and all of these bringing these expressions back into my work, but probably in a more abstract way. There's something really magical to me about the self-expression part of art. And even if it looks weird, even if you think it looks terrible, I think this is a really important part of the healing process, of the art process, of expressing something into the world that wasn't there before. And there's something really miraculous about that, about creating something that didn't exist. It was literally a white blank page before you started. And then, this art just evolves in front of your eyes. And it's usually not what you expect. Even if you have a picture in your head, it will develop in its own way. And there's something so magical about that. And it's only by doing this work on a regular basis and building that body of work, working over years, that you can then reflect back and you can see where the journey's taken you and you can see how your work's evolved. For me, art is not a linear process. It feels more like a spider's web. Like there's different things, different tangents you could go off on, different things to explore. So if you follow one avenue, you can always come back and go down a different avenue and explore that one. There's also this idea of finding your signature style. And I think sometimes that becomes a trap, because as an artist, you feel like this is my style, this is the only type of work I can make. And that's just not true. Art should be an exploration. Art should be expression. And I know that I'm a different person now than I was 10 or 20 years ago. And I'd expect the art to be different in 10 and 20 years' time as well. It's part of who I am as I'm evolving through time and space, as we hurtle through the cosmos on this planet. And there's something so special just about capturing these little moments, this precious capsule of time, as we are here and now, and expressing what's important to you and how the world makes you feel. At the end of the day, when it all comes down to it, of all the things I could do in the world, all I want to do is make art.